Hey guys, David Tao with barbend.com. And a couple weeks ago, Adam Klink, an elite CrossFitter, became the first person we know of to accomplish what some once thought impossible: run a sub 5-minute mile and back squat 500 pounds on the same day. It's a challenge that CrossFit Games director Dave Castro came up with years ago. Klink first heard about it in 2012. 8 years later, he's the first person that we know of to accomplish the feat. And he also did a little something extra at the end of that day, 50 unbroken pull-ups just to round it out. We sat down with Adam to talk about his training and what it felt like to actually tackle this impressive athletic challenge. Adam Klink, thanks for joining us today. You know, you've always been a beast, right? I actually got the chance to train with you years ago. It was probably like 6 years ago.
Wow.
It was a while ago. You're a strong guy. You're a fit guy. You were back then when in my mind I was like, oh, this is like a CrossFit regionals level competitor. This is a guy who's got a full bag of tricks as far as fitness goes. But recently you did something that I don't think anyone's ever done before. At least we haven't been able to identify anyone else who's done that before, which is to back squat 500 pounds and run a sub 5-minute mile in the same day. I got to ask, when did that challenge first enter your mind?
Yeah, so if you've ever taken a CrossFit Level 1 course, they actually talk about the concept of what, in theory, what CrossFit is trying to do. We're not trying to be so one-sided, and they talk about the power lifter who can squat 1,000 pounds, and they talk about the marathoner who can run a sub 2-hour marathon, but we want to be in the middle, and they throw out basically the concept of a 500-pound back squat and a sub 5-minute mile as what a CrossFitter, this is fairy tale, what they might potentially be able to do. And then in 2000, so I actually heard about this in 2012 when I took my level 1, about that concept. And then in 2017, Dave Castro, in his book of Constructing the CrossFit Games, he had mentioned, I think he was having a conversation with Scott Panchik, that he wanted to do a test of a mile run and a max back squat. And he thought that, he threw it out there for the sub 5-minute mile and a 500-pound back squat. So that's kind of how that really came into fruition, and just been something in the back of my mind that I thought that I could maybe do.
So obviously it turned from something that was in the back of your mind to something that was maybe all consuming in your training, because it was something that you set a date. You're like, I want to do this. What did your training look like leading up to that? And how long did you specifically train for those two feats? Because I know you've been able to back squat 500 pounds for a number of years. I think I've seen you do it. Yeah. But, was the sub 5-minute mile something you already knew you could achieve? And then, how long did you train specifically to do those two on the same day?
So I've been training CrossFit for the past 8 years now. So I kept up with my normal CrossFit training. I just added in the squatting and the running for a session of my working out per day. But I've been a strong squatter, and I probably hit 500 for the first time back in like 2016. And I've kind of gone in waves, like being in and out of competition, going into like regionals. I wouldn't be at a level where I could hit 500 pounds. It's more kind of an off-season thing. I'd build up that strength. And I got as high as 550. So I had a really good base in the back squat, and I was confident in that. The mile, on the other hand, totally different. So get this, in 10th grade, I ran a 4:56 mile. I was 170 pounds.
and what do you weigh right now, just for reference?
I am 216 pounds now. On the day I did it, I weighed myself, I was 216 pounds. So big difference. And also in high school, it was 4 laps. It wasn't the 1609. So when I did this test, I ran the full 1609 for the mile. So I really probably started training for this. It was about 10 weeks prior. And what I would do, I got with his name's Rick Burrow. He goes to our gym. He ran for Virginia Tech, so he's just more knowledgeable on the subject, over me. So I picked his brain about some running, and he helped me with some track workouts. But I ran Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I back squatted Tuesday, Thursday. And then as I got closer, maybe 4 weeks out, just to keep my confidence, because let me tell you, it was a head game. I would, on Friday, on tired legs, after I did my hard track workout, that afternoon, I'd max out my back squat and try to hit 500 pounds, just more so I knew I could hit it.
So going into, you started really training specifically for this 10 weeks out. As you approach that date, I have two questions. The first is, did you have a deload? I mean, did you cycle down your training like the week before, or were you still just doing CrossFit?
I did a 30-minute CrossFit workout that Saturday and did it Sunday. Now, granted, like the Saturday I did one instead of 2 or 3 workouts, but I didn't really deload. It was kind of my normal schedule.
The toughest thing to get an elite CrossFitter to do is nothing.
No, really. Like I had to do something the day before. I couldn't like take a rest day. Even one of the other coaches at my gym, he was like, Adam, you're probably going to hurt yourself more than you're going to help yourself working out right now. But I did it anyway. So it's just in my nature. And in my mind, I'm saying like, I didn't get this fit by resting. And I know that might be stupid to say, but like I got to the point I'm at by working hard.
So your confidence and then the head game aspect of this, I really want to dive in on that for a second. Heading in, the week before, what was your confidence level that you were going to be able to accomplish both of these in the same day?
So, little backstory. My buddy Dane Smith and I, he's the youngest Smith brother. We both have this goal. Dane's actually going to give this a go this weekend.
Oh, cool.
See if he can hit it. So maybe another person. We'll see. But we've been putting out our programming in what we have been doing a week behind. So everybody's been following this. But basically we had kind of like a mid to 2/3 of the way retest where we ran a good effort mile. And then it went better than expected for me. I ran a 5:12. So then I hit the back squat because I think the closest anybody's gotten is 5:14 and a 500-pound back squat. So I hit 5:12. So I was like, let me throw the back squat in. But anyways, we were then going to train for 4 more weeks and then hit it. Well, I jumped the gun and I felt really good / bad. Like I felt ready, but I was also to the point where like starting to fall apart a little bit, like having foot problems and, just the volume of the training was starting to get to me. So I decided to give it a go. But after that first test we did, that 2/3 of the way test, how I was talking about hitting the squat every Friday. Well, I failed the squat that Friday. So talk about being a mess. I mean, I remember going to Ben like, Ben, I'm done. I can't do it. I'm losing strength. I got to stop. Like just all over the place. But I did make it a point. I turned around and like 4 days later, so at the start of the next week, I hit 500 and then I did some hard running intervals. And I felt in my head that I was prepared as I was ever going to be. So going into that morning, I mean, yes, I was more nervous than I've ever been, but I've also been at the same time more confident than I've ever been just because and I think I was nervous just because I knew what I was about to do.
Yeah. Well, being anxious or nervous and being confident aren't always mutually exclusive.
Correct.
And I think that people underestimate that from high level athletics. They're like, wow, this person is just cool, calm, and collected. You could know you're the best in the world, but a lot of times you can still be nervous, anxious, like that drives performance. Can you harness that in a way that's going to help your performance? It sounds like you were able to do that.
Yeah, I think I did on that day. Like, I think the nerves helped me out. Like I remember, and there's a mental side within the mile run. And actually Chris Hinshaw actually just talked about this, but there comes a point in the mile. And for me, it's the exact point he pointed out. And he had no idea what was going on in my head, but rounding that first turn in the 3rd lap, I remember having that battle in my head, like, look, you're going to go or you're not. Like there's a choice that you make at a certain point in your workout, or for my example, the run, where you make the decision to make it hurt and go, or you back off and you get close, but probably don't hit your goal. And, but I think those if I didn't have those nerves, I might not have made that decision when I got to that point in the run. Like I had that pressure on myself that look, I don't want to do this again. Like, let's just do this.
So take us through the day. For those who might just be finding out about this for the first time, take us through that Sunday. What was the timing on everything? Did you have any set parameters where you're like, oh, I have to do it in this block of hours? Like what did that day look like? Yeah.
So just another back end story. So the thing that separates this, or maybe somebody who has all these numbers, is doing this in the same day. So you have to do it within a 24-hour period. So my routine on Sunday, I have a son named Noah and my wife Shay. Our routine was every Sunday we'd get up, we'd make him breakfast, and then we'd get out to the track, which if you have a small child, it takes a while. So it ends up being like 9 a.m. And that was just my routine. On this particular day, it was going to be like 94 degrees out. So yes, I probably could have and should have ran earlier in the morning just, for the heat, but they were my support system and I had to do it with them. So 9 a.m. we'd roll out there. And so I hit the mile around 9:30 in the morning. I had 2 pacers, which they were beyond awesome to come out and help pace me. And I made sure I wanted to document this too, right? So if I did it, like I wanted proof, and I wanted proof that nobody could argue with, right? So I wanted to document it well. So did the mile, sold out. I was wrecked for a little while.
What was your final time?
So my final time was 4:56. And it was one of those things where like I ran a 5:12 2 weeks prior, and a nice good run. Like I felt pretty good, but like that extra 1% effort, like I couldn't have squatted an hour, 2 hours after that. So I had planned to take a break, and I kind of stuck with just my normal training times throughout the day. So like after I'm doing this podcast with you, I go back to the gym and coach and train. So I'm usually working out anywhere between like 2 and 4. So I got back to the gym around 3:30 to plan the squat, and I did the squat around then. And again, I was definitely more confident in the squat. It's kind of my thing, if I had to say I had a thing movement-wise. And then there was a third piece to this. And the reason there was a third piece is because, again, in Castro's book, so this was a little bit to appease Dave Castro. I think the greater achievement is the mile and the squat. But he threw in, he wanted some sort of upper body gymnastics, upper body endurance component. So he threw in 50 pull-ups, and they were allowed to be kipping. I double-checked that with him. And I know there's my kipping haters, but I warned everybody in the video. I said, look away if you don't like this. But it played on the 550, 500.
Right.
And it just added basically a third element to the triangle. So after the squat, I hopped up and I did my 50 pull-ups, and that was my day. And
I mean, that makes sense, because otherwise if you're like training specifically for these two things and like can't do a body weight push-up, you know what I mean? Like what's the point? So 50 unbroken kipping pull-ups for you is probably not that challenging. Do you have like a max PR set that you've done of unbroken pull-ups?
It's been a while since I've gone for a max set, but like in competitions, we've had like 64 reps that I think were pretty close to unbroken. So I think I've done maybe 60 or close to 70 pull-ups, but I really haven't tested it in years.
It's also not something that you see. I remember, if probably 8 or 9 years ago in the CrossFit space, that everyone was trying to like get to 100 unbroken kipping pull-ups.
Sure, got to 100 or something. Yeah.
And it was like this whole thing. And now like no one really cares.
Well, because I think athletes are smarter, and when they're actually training, if you had 100 pull-ups in a workout, you would manage that,
right?
Because there's usually more work within the workout, right? It's not just 100 pull-ups for time. So doing 100 unbroken and then being useless does you no good. So, I mean, doing a max set of pull-ups is kind of cool just to see how many pull-ups you can do in a row.
I would be interested to see that at the games. Like, okay, max unbroken pull-ups, like go for it. You're going to see
that would be kind of cool, actually. Yeah, that'd be a good test.
I mean, you're going to see a lot of athletes probably pretty upset with that one.
Yeah, and you'd see some people, I think, nowadays break 100.
Well, Adam, I really appreciate you taking the time. I got to say, after you went through this day of the sub 5-minute mile, the 500-pound back squat, the 50 pull-ups, how did you feel on Monday morning?
I was honestly the most sore from the pull-ups because it wasn't anything I trained. But I think it was like my central nervous system was shot. I think the adrenaline I had through the day, like, again, I was prepared. Like I did the training. I shouldn't have been super sore if I did that correctly. So I wasn't super sore, but I was exhausted. Like the next day, I was dragging. So
what might be next? I mean, obviously this envelope has been pushed. Dane Smith might accomplish this a few days after we publish this. It's something that I think people will probably do. We'll probably see some more people doing it later this year.
The door's kind of open. Yeah.
Which is not to take away your accomplishment. Hey, you put in the work, you did it first, and that's awesome. And let's be honest, I'm not going to start training for this right now because I don't think it's good. I actually don't know which is further off for me. The 50 unbroken pull-ups I could probably get with a little bit of training. But is there something next? Like, do you have a next goal in mind?
Yeah, everybody's been asking that. And I mean, first and foremost, one, I'm a coach, but then I like to be a competitive CrossFitter. So it's kind of going to depend on what the landscape is. I'm really thinking that the games are going to be canned this year. I can't see them actually pulling it off. Maybe online, but then it'll depend what the next season looks like. Again, I'd like to compete in some of those sanctionals if those are around and see how far I can get athletically there. Like that's always been my goal ever since I left college soccer. But I don't know if that's not around. I might have to come up with something else like this that seems like a crazy far off goal. I don't know if it'll be more leaning on the endurance side or the lifting side, but I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I'm putting my marbles still into CrossFit.
Well, we at Barbend, we cover a lot of different types of strength sports. So if you need some inspiration, we can come up with something that takes like a weightlifting movement, a strongman movement, a powerlifting movement, something from CrossFit, something from like Moss wrestling.
If you want to throw something out there.
We'll get creative. That's another broadcast sometime. Adam, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's cool for me personally, and no one cares about my opinion where everyone's just watching for you, but it's cool from my perspective to see you go from someone who, I first met and trained with a little bit as a very passionate coach and athlete to someone who is finding during a time when like we're just not having events, right? Who's able to really focus that passion and hopefully inspire some people when we're not having competitions, when a lot of people are feeling down on themselves, when a lot of gyms are closed or reclosing. It's so cool to see you find that outlet and to do something that we're excited to share and that I think is going to get a lot of people, really jazzed about working out again.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And one thing I want people to know is like, one, I have a full-time job. I also have a 1-year-old kid. So like, I'm not necessarily a professional athlete. So I hope this just inspires people to set some goals for themselves, no matter how big or small they are, but just to motivate some people coming out of this quarantine and get them motivated to work hard again.
Awesome. Adam Klink, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. Hey, thank you.